All right, I'm going to begin this newspaper review with a preamble of the Constitution of Kenya. I have it with me here, a copy that got delivered to me just a few minutes ago from the Constitutional Reform Consortium, CRECO. So, the preamble to the Constitution of Kenya, something that you should be thinking about. We, the people of Kenya, acknowledging, so I'll be doing them, I'll be numbering what you need to take a note of, just the main word, yeah? Acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of all creation, honoring those who heroically struggled to bring freedom and justice to our land, proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation, respectful of the environment, which is our heritage, and determined to sustain it to the benefit of future generations, committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the individual, the family, communities, and the nation, recognizing the aspirations of all Kenyans for a government based on essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and the rule of law, exercising our sovereign and inalienable right to determine the form of government of our country, and having participated fully in the making of this constitution, adopt, enact, and give the constitution to ourselves and to future generations. God bless Kenya. That's the preamble to the Constitution of Kenya. Today, we'll have a look at chapter 12 of the Constitution. And it's important that I also read chapter 1. I'm just being reminded that this is the most important bit of the Constitution. Chapter 1 starts like this. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. Think about that as we begin this newspaper review. A lot of unconstitutional activities have been happening in this republic since the Kenya Kwanza government came into power in September of 2022. We are speaking the appointment of CASs, which has now been suspended by President William Ruto. We are speaking the offices of the spouses of the president, the deputy president, and the prime cabinet secretary. We are speaking about the latest appointment into an independent task force to have a look at the debt situation in the republic, where now, as of yesterday, High Court, I see here information from a newsroom showing that the High Court of Kenya has directed the matter to be mentioned on July 23rd, and Justice Lawrence Mugambi has blocked this task force from embarking on the job following a petition by someone in Nakuru, a citizen who is a Nakuru-based surgeon. So this matter is in court, and President William Ruto has been dealt a blow. The president of the Law Society of Kenya has also declined her appointment into this task force. I have with me on this set today on the panel, Dennis Kimani. Dennis Kimani is the chairperson of Youth Green Society. We've had conversations for years on Biashara Tuesday, whether it's on the newspaper review or on the State of the Nation. Dennis Kimani was also part of the young people who've been voicing vehemently their concerns against the republic, against the government, against the incompetencies, the runaway corruption, and unfortunately also did meet with injustice, yeah? Utumishi kwa wote walipatana na yeye in the Nairobi CBD on the June 25th, and we'll get to speak about his experience then and if his resilience still stands. The events of June 25th are detailed here on the front of the Daily Nation, and it's how MPs fled, how we fled. That's the title of the Daily Nation, a narration from the August House on what happened to them trying to escape the protesters' wrath on the June 25th. So Dennis Kimani will let us know of the events of that day, on how they unfolded and where he was at. But Brian Sengeli also joining us on set, a public policy and governance analyst and professional who's dedicated his fight or his advocacy for the rights of the minority and marginalized communities in Kenya. Through the organization that he works with, he's been able to empower over 500,000 community members. He let us know about that. And because the conversation on civic education is happening currently, hot and ripe, even with the protests and maandamano and keeping the government into check, the work that Brian Sengeli is doing is very important, and we'll get to know how that is going to work out leading into the next few days of events. The IEBC bill, which is being sent today to an act by President William Ruto in KICC. There's so much to speak about. So let's introduce the gentlemen, get your reactions online, and also see the headlines. Dennis Kimani, welcome back.
Yeah.
Happy to see you're healthy. Greet us.
Thank you everyone. Good morning all Gen Zs, millennials and people of Kenya. Today I'll just start by saying I pledge my loyalty to nature and the life of the planet. My greenness and duty is to defend the green color of my republic. So help me God.
All right. So help him God. You're healthy, and we'll get into the details later. But Brian, who's here for the first time, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself to our people.
Thank you so much. My name is Sengeli Brian, and thank you for inviting me for this particular interview. Good morning to our viewers. It's great to be here to discuss the state of the nation. As we always say, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. This is a time where decades are happening, and we are glad that we are actually caught in the moment to witness the momentous things that are going to happen and change our future. Thank you.
All right. Very excited to be also in this momentous time in history. In June 25th, when I was in the CBD myself, having a look at, the young people, joining the young people to voice our concerns to the government, I could feel the electric historic moment. I knew that at that very moment, I was walking through a history book. I was walking inside a story that will be read by generations to come. So it is very apt that you mentioned decades are happening in weeks. There are times where, nothing happens in decades, and then there are weeks where decades happen, and these are one of those. Let's have a look at the headlines, gentlemen, before we get into other details. The Daily Nation says how we fled. And here, on Tuesday 25th, just after members of parliament had passed the controversial finance bill of 2024 against intense public pressure, youthful protesters who had been kept off the National Assembly for most of the day breached the security and fence of the hallowed August House. For members of parliament who were in the premises, all hell broke loose as they sought to escape the protesters' wrath. Some of the lawmakers here narrate to the nation the events of the fateful day. Page 6 and 7, we have Millie Odhiambo, Super North Member of Parliament, narrating her experience where she was seated at and the confusion in the tunnel to Bunge Towers. We have Didmas Baraza, who also says there's a youth who identified him, and he said that is the usual MP in a cap. Na alikuwa amejificha nyuma of another member of parliament trying to make his way to Bunge. Anasema he saw death with his own eyes. I don't think... Okay, let me reserve my comments on Didmas Baraza and seeing death for the first time. Bishop Jackson Kosgei, nominated member of parliament, also has his narration on what happened to him, saying that they told him that he was a good man and they escorted him out of the building. Yeah, aliponea. Walimwambia wewe, kuna bahati wewe Bishop wewe. Ni vile tumekusamea, Mungu ametuonekania. They have an image of parliament burning here on the Daily Nation. 25th. This is an image by Dennis Onsongo of the Nation. That's the Daily Nation. Deno, tuanze na wewe kwa sababu we need to also get to hear what happened to you on the day and even the days after. June 25th, momentous day in history. Ulikaribia mbali sana na parliament, ulikaribia karibu without giving too much away to whoever might be watching.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
It's great to see you today.
Yes, great to see you.
My friend Brian has said, we are having decades in weeks. We have been waiting for this time for a very, very long time. We cried 2 months before whatever happened in June 25th happened. We tried to tell this government, listen to us, the finance bill is punitive, try and change. But they never heeded to our call.
Yeah.
So we had to go to the streets. We started and kicked off on Tuesday, where everyone was in town, heading to State House. This was the day, the first reading of the bill. So everybody were in town. We were trying to head to State House,
Yes.
to Parliament. So myself, I was leading to Parliament through the Uhuru Highway. a lot of tear gas canisters were coming our way. It was a cloud of smoke from everywhere, sounds that you cannot even tell if it's bullets or anything else. But hopefully God helped us and we came out of there. What to say is that the rock police were shooting at us, throwing tear gas, but we had to surrender. So they came for me when I was kneeling, my hands were up, tear gas had hit my eyes, I was bleeding from the nose, and they carried me heavy, shoulder high. So they almost put me in their truck. But you guys, you're good. The news people, the journalists, you're good. When they saw the cameras, they released me immediately. And that's how my life was saved.
All right.
Yes.
We saw the videos, and very concerning, of course. We felt like we'd lost you and future generations. Hopefully that is intact, yeah?
Yes. The future generation are intact.
All right. And Deno had also gone hiding for a minute there, or missing for a minute there, without giving away what exactly happened. But as you can see, for those who are concerned, there are people who are calling me asking, hey, mmepeleka wapi Deno, mmempata? Deno is alive and well, for all those who are concerned, and we are grateful for the messages and the concerns. Asante sana Deno for still making time even after the troublesome times.
We are not relenting until we have a full liberation of Kenya and revolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, let us know from your point of view the events of June 25th and your general reactions.
As I said, we are having a moment where decades are happening in weeks or in a week, and perhaps to give a history of where we've come from as a country and where we are at the moment. As a country, we've had incremental changes that as a citizen we are seeing that these incremental changes, they are too little and they're not getting us to where we want to be. And that's when now the Kenyan youth have now awakened that spirit of public accountability. That's a responsibility for citizens to call the political class to account for what they are doing with their particular positions. Recently, we saw a lot of events happening. It began by we saw a judge being shot, and then after that we saw the controversial finance bill, and later on we saw reject protests by Gen Z. And these are I want to commend them because this is what we want at the moment. It has led to government reacting, and that would mean that they are not only hitting below the belt, they are hitting the vitals. When you see the government reacting, it means that they are hitting the vitals, and that's what we need in the moment. We've always lived in a moment of deceit, a moment of political dictatorship. And I think time is long gone when citizens don't used to fear the government of the day and even asking for accountability from them. So I think it is quite a momentous period, and we are looking forward to seeing many revolutions that are going to bring positive changes for this particular nation.
All right. That's how Brian looks at it from the history on what has brought us here, the incremental changes, the revolutions that have happened. And of course on Sunday as well, Saba Saba happened on a day where the young people also came together to hold a concert for those who lost their lives so far in this anti-government protest, which began as Reject Finance Bill, but now it's Occupy Everywhere. It's accountability that is being sought from the government. Page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation, as I said, if you have a copy of it yourself, you can read a narration of the parliament raid. That's what they're calling it. A number of lawmakers, especially from the Kenya Kwanza side, had to be sneaked out in ambulances to avoid the wrath of the mob. I was in the CBD seeing those ambulances coming out of parliament, and they're calling it an assault on parliament that came as a shocker as the public displayed rage against the passage of the bill. A picture here, a section of the members' dining hall at Parliament buildings that was vandalized on the same day. And here, that is couple of members of parliament who are being quoted. And there's, while in the tunnel, a section of MPs who are allied to Azimio will be heard accusing their Kenya Kwanza colleagues of being the source of the reasons they were running away. So conversations in Swahili which are quoted here saying, nyinyi ndio mmetuletea hii shida na ujeuri wenu. Mngesikiza wa Kenya kwa hii mambo ya finance bill, atungekuwa kwa hii shida. Loosely translated to, you are the cause of our troubles and the reason why we are in this situation. Had you listened to Kenyans opposing to the finance bill, you wouldn't be here. So recent events have highlighted the importance of transparency and accountability in public spending. The anti-government protests are calling for fiscal responsibility, coupled with what the president's decision was to scrap budgets of certain offices and to also set up a debt inquiry task force. This also began way back from before June 25th, and now it's become a whole conversation on we the citizens must know what is the government doing with our taxes, what is it doing with our money, what is it doing with the loans they are borrowing in our name. Brian, I'd like to begin from that very high note, which is I have the constitution here with me, and I'm just looking at chapter 12, the Public Finance Act, the principles and frameworks of public finance. Yeah. You maybe from your own point of view as an analyst, the key provisions in this constitution that I have here, such as the Finance Act or any other that allow citizens to hold the government into account and empower us to use this constitution to hold them into account when it comes to matters of fiscal responsibility.
I've actually looked at some of the headlines for the newspaper, and this actually informs also the conversation. We've seen the members of parliament recounting how the Gen Zs invaded the parliament. Yeah. And I don't find anything wrong with that, because the employers were going to have a conversation with their employees. And there was nothing wrong with that. These people, they were not armed. And therefore, there was no cause for alarm, because what they wanted is they wanted to go there and present their memoranda and have a very candid conversation with their MPs. However, this was actually misinterpreted. Yeah. And when you look at our legal instruments, the Constitution of Kenya, under chapter 12, when you look specifically under article 201, it actually enshrines the principles of public finances, and it actually clearly says that public finances should be very open. There should be public accountability with public participation. There should be prudent management and use of public resources, and also clarity and clarity in fiscal reporting. And therefore, when you look at those principles, it informs and lays ground for citizen participation. One of it was public participation. Public participation, the Constitution provides for citizens to exercise that particular right, either directly or indirectly. Indirectly, we are speaking of through their representatives, through their MPs. And the inversion to the parliament is when the youth felt like during the public participation forums, their voices were not heard. And therefore, it actually forced them to go and have a physical meeting with their MPs, and there was nothing wrong with that. Other legal instrument that provides for a legal basis for this is the Public Finance Management Act of 2012. And this particular act, it presents a very unique avenue for citizens to engage, because it provides a structure, it mandates it to provide a structure for engaging the citizens, whether public forums, whether it's on media. They should be able to put up forums for citizens to engage and have their input in the public budget making processes before it's considered. Okay. Secondly, this particular act, it actually mandates the government to put out financial statements earlier, so that citizens can scrutinize and arm themselves with necessary information, so that they can hold the leadership in place into account. And lastly, this particular act as well, it actually establishes the office of
The Auditor General?
Auditor General, of which it's an independent office that has the mandate of auditing the public funds and reporting to the parliament. And these are some of the avenues that are provided by this particular Public Finance Management Act. When you look at the Constitution as well, under Article 114, it actually grants the National Assembly a mandate of oversight over the public funds. And that's why now we've seen a lot of erosion of trust among Kenyan citizens. They have felt like their view has not been considered and taken seriously by these particular people. They have failed in their representation role. They have failed in their oversight role. And what they are doing currently is they are just a rubber-stamping authority of the executive.
Yes.
And therefore, it's because of this emasculation of the parliament that now citizens have decided now to take the power that they actually delegated under Article 1, that the power belongs to the people.
Yes.
And they want to exercise it according to the Constitution.
And they want to exercise it according to the Constitution. The Constitution says here that the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. Yani, if the democratically elected representatives do not show up for work, then the citizens can decide to do it directly by inspecting the work premises, as it was done on June 25th by the young people. So chapter 8 is where you can get the legislature, the establishment of the role of parliament, and Brian has mentioned Article 114, which is about the money bill, and of course the role of oversight, recommendation of the relevant committee of the assembly after taking into account the views of the cabinet secretary responsible for finance. That's chapter 114. And then I was having a look here at, of course, that's Article 114. And then I have here the chapter 12 where Public Finance Act is at. We'll have a look more into that. So directly or indirectly through the elected representatives. The events of the June 25th directly having a look at the lawmakers and going to have a conversation to them on parliament, they know. Yes. Wanasema it is going to cost 150 million to repair the effects of this direct engagement with parliament. On page 7 of the Daily Nation, Gen Z protests house repair to cost over 150 million Kenyan shillings. A picture of security officers along Parliament Road restraining demonstrators from accessing parliament buildings in Nairobi. They should have wrote assessing. You know, it was just an assessment. Accessing to assess. The gory images of wanton destruction and desecration of Parliament Square by those masquerading as peaceful protesters are highly regrettable. That's Speaker Moses Wetangula quoted there saying. I want to ask this question to you, Deno, as you respond. Yeah. So the Constitution offers direct or indirect engagement. Yes. Brian has said it has come to a point where now it seems the legislature is just rubber stamping what the executive wants to happen. Finance bill. Walisema yes, yes, yes. Even after the president said, okay, let's just take it back. It seems the MPs were still, on the yes. Even the question asked on, what happens now the next year in terms of our budgeting. And then the MPs were like, yeah, muna expect kitu aje na mshakata finance bill. Why did it have to be a direct engagement now that the Constitution already offers indirect and stipulations that empower us to oversight the government?
I will start by saying that it's sure that we elected these MPs, but remember 2022, we had something that we are calling a wave, a UDA wave. Most of these MPs that were elected through UDA, they were not elected because they were the preferables. Because it is just because of the UDA umbrella. We already told them to vote no. A lot. When I started this, I told you that it was 2 months ago before only 10 people were going to town to reject this finance bill. If they could have taken us seriously at that point, nothing would have happened. Even the 150 million shillings for renovation would not have happened. But again, you see, we elected this government not for administration but as constructors. It's like we gave them the work of going to construct this Kenya for us, and they're not constructing new roads. They are renovating a state house that is already there. It's good. They are renovating DP's residential office in Karen that is just a new house, less than 5 years. You see, priorities upside down. So we just gave them a greetings. Actually, I'm seeing Didmas Baraza was the first person to run away, but he's the first person to shout in Twitter, saying that this government is working. He's the first person to shoot a young person just because of elections. So what was he going to do in parliament if he cannot listen to the people that voted for him? It is so sad, but it is something that has come to Kenya, that we still have some good people in this parliament. Because one potato it spoils the others.
Yes.
But we want to tell them today the president is going to reconstitute and pass the IEBC bill. I want to tell them categorically, without fear of contradiction, we are going to recall you. That is something that we are going to take. When I'm coming out of this, I'm going to IEBC Anniversary Towers. We are sure that IEBC will be in place, because we are tired of your games. We are tired of you getting 2 million shillings in parliament toilets so that you can come and deprive Kenyans their rights. You cannot even pay JSSC teachers. A lot of things are happening in Kenya that are wrong. IMF and World Bank, they are giving out reports that the monies that we give you, it is not monies for buying expensive watches, expensive shoes. It is monies to sponsor development. But we have really seen that we have no trust with this government. Ruto must go, and that is the only way we are going to ensure that Kenya future is we have a Kenyan future.
All right.
I want to put about the finances. Let me ask you a question.
Ask me.
Auditor General. When I ask you a question, you say independent or dependent?
Okay.
Auditor General.
Independent.
Control of budget.
Independent.
KRA.
Independent.
National Treasury.
Compromised.
You see? So that is the problem. You already saw the problem.
Yes.
The problem with Kenya is because National Treasury, that is supposed to be an independent body, it is in the pocket of William Ruto. So the money that is supposed to build roads is given to MPs because he wants them to pass what he wants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the work that they're mandated to do, they're using this as a channel of influencing the legislature.
Yes, so we have to occupy National Treasury. Yeah.
Occupy National Treasury. First time I'm hearing it here. Yeah. So, and interns have been occupying MOH. We'll get into that as well. This occupation has now spread across different sectors of the nation. But still sticking to matters of public finance, just getting it back from Brian. Anaongelea watches, red bottoms, expenditure, travels, and here on the Article 211, chapter 12, financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. The question on the mind of many Kenyans now is, even after the president declaring that we have scrapped this office, mesema to espouse na first lady tumetoa basi, mesema to he also, some 47 state agencies also dealt with, also saying there's going to be austerity measures. And the constitution says financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. When speak clarity, are there avenues in which mwananchi kama mimi naeza amka kesho, I go check what is my county government spending, or are there challenges which have been there in effectively implementing these acts? There have been challenges which have caused the young people now to say, okay, since you're not implementing this in the constitution, since you're not following this, let's now directly engage you at State House. Let's come occupy it. Let's come occupy Parliament. Are there places where fiscal reporting is clear? And if not, what are these challenges which are blocking the way of implementation?
Well, looking at the things, I would begin by giving it's like a proverb. And it's a story about the monkeys who asked gods to give them long tails. and therefore it's up to the monkeys to know how to live with their long tails. We also ask God for this government. We also have to find a way of living with our government. And what Gen Zs are doing, they are doing God's work. Yeah, they are doing God's work. When you look at the provisions that empowers citizens to participate in the oversight of public resources, you find that the Constitution clearly under Chapter 12, it provides that the public finances should be open. There should be clarity when it comes to fiscal policies. But our government we've had a history, a history of deceit. We've had a history that is not good enough. And it actually depicts a very grim picture of where we are as a country and the amount of challenges that we are facing as a country. One of the challenges that we are facing in implementing this particular, the Public Finance Management Act, is lack of political goodwill. There need to be some good sense of political goodwill from the political class, from the executive itself, because this is the leading, this is the arm that is being led by the CEO of the country. They need to depict a picture of promoting accountability and transparency in the public finances. But we've seen officers flaunting wealth, walking around with a lot of cash. And this actually, it is actually seen as a mockery to the poor. Because why the hell are you using a lot of this, walking around with a lot of resources? And yet we have schools that are underfunded. We are having students who are not going to school. Secondly, when you look at our public participation framework and architecture, it is not well structured. And that's why we're calling for the government to put in place a well-structured public engagement framework to ensure that it is all-inclusive and every other view that, or every other proposal that every other Kenyan is proposing should be considered, because some of these policies that are being developed should reflect the real issues that people are facing on the ground. Secondly, we are having issues with the capacity one of the citizens to engage in the public policy, public finance budget making processes. When you look at the reports that have been put out there, these reports, they are very complex. They are very complex. They cannot be analyzed by a normal human being, a normal youth from the street or from the village. It is very complex. Thirdly, when you look at also the bureaucracies when it comes to access to information, when you file for a right to information, to access some of this information, it takes time for you to get it, and therefore it undermines also the transparency of the offices. And it's because of these reasons that people have now lost their trust in their leadership. They have lost their trust in the public institutions that are supposed to be independent. When you look at Office of Auditor General and the Office of Control of the Budget, they give out very good reports, but some of these reports, they have very eloquent and good recommendations, but the recommendations, they are not followed up and they are not taken up by the executive and implemented. And therefore, one thing that the government have failed, especially the legislature, is following up on the recommendations given out in these reports, because it is what is supposed to cover up the gaps that has been there when it comes to mismanagement and misuse of the public resources. And it is up to now the responsibility of citizens now to engage in these processes. How? By engaging in various ways. They can engage through, now we are seeing a lot of engagement on social media. We've seen young people coming out and engaging each other, trying to enlighten each other when it comes to finance bill. When you go to the village 2 years ago, when
no one knew what a finance bill
no one
is.
knew actually what the finance bill was. But at the moment, even if you ask a very old grandmother from the village, they will ask you whether we are rejecting or we are accepting. And therefore, it's a conversation that is gaining momentum even in the interior parts of the country. the young people could also engage in some of these public forums that has been organized by government, CSOs, in order to build their capacity and engagement in the budget making processes, because it's actually important for them to have this information so that they can hold their government into account. And also citizens have a right to request information from some of these independent offices. You can actually request and be served with these reports. And what we want from these independent offices, like for instance, when you look at the office of Auditor General, what the youth want is some of this report. We want them to be published. We want them the popular version of it, a version that is simplified for a common mwananchi to read, understand, and be able to point out where there has been mismanagement of public fund. And therefore, by doing so, we shall be exercising our role as stipulated within the Constitution.
Oversighting over the government. Yes, Dennis.
On BBI, they had a very good aspect on the public participation. What is the gap that the 2010 Constitution is having, it is a public participation commission, because this commission is what will tell what is enough public participation. You can even ask 10 people and then you say that is
public participation done.
Statistics will just say that is a house for 1,000 people. You see, that is not enough public participation. Going forward, I think the parliament should come up with a public participation commission. Yes.
All right. That will help us in bridging that gap. Nakumbuka some time back you say public participation is just physical exercise.
Yeah, it's like PE.
Yeah?
It's never accounted for.
It's never accounted for. The implementation is also a question that Brian has pointed out there, that, the Auditor General comes up with figures and says, this is what happened, this is what was mismanaged, but the implementation against those cases of corruption or the mismanagement is what is lacking. And I have figures here from Isiolo Stadium. Just like the Auditor General who comes out to tell us this is how much money we've lost in this ministry in typing errors, this is how much we've lost there. In Isiolo, the stadium, international stadium that was supposed to be constructed, has been financed from 2019. I have figures from 2019 to 2022. So in 2019, the allocated funds were 150 million. Misused funds were 60 million. Discrepancies were 30 million. The remarks on these projects are significant delays, considerable amount of funds was unaccounted for, which led to incomplete work and stalled progress. The next year, allocated funds 200 million. Misused funds 80 million. Discrepancies 50 million. Remarks, irregular procurement processes, contracts awarded without proper tendering. It remained incomplete despite the allocation. 2021-2022 financial year, 250 million allocated. Misused funds 100 million. Discrepancies 70 million. Remarks, over-invoicing was a major issue, with projects cost significantly inflated. Additionally, the work completed was substandard, failing to meet the required specifications. Should we then occupy everything? Because now, the Isiolo, there is a problem. In my county, there is misappropriation. There is a lapse in the offices which are supposed to be independent in keeping this government in check, or every other government in check. How do we make sure, before we ever get a public participation commission, before we ever get to a point where there is independence in these institutions, what should we do? Kwanza hii Isiolo, it seems every year they mismanage, wanaongezewa budget the next year, and they mismanage some more, and they add some more mismanagement to the next year.
Even in Daily Nation, the last page, City Hall splashed shillings 1.2 billion on trips, controller of budget says. What I say is that I also saw a lot, the counties are also losing our money at the jury, at the lawyers. When they're going to lawyers, there is where money is being lost, because they are giving a lot of money to laws, so law firms, so that they can steal with them. I don't know what case can cost 150 million in a year.
There's also a 1 billion bill in Nairobi County.
Yes, so that's very, very low. So what I want to say is that going forward, our finances are not going to be meant for vehicles. We are going to occupy everywhere. First and foremost, I know this message will reach the people in the occupation. National Treasury must be released from executive.
Yes.
And I will say here again, William Ruto, Wetangula, and Madhakome, they are all equal. There is no one that is bigger than the other. The only thing that Ruto is bigger to them is because he signs bills. Otherwise, he should not be the controller of money. He is not the distributor of money. National Treasury must be independent. If Kenya wants to have independence in their money and accountability in what we do, let's follow what Okio Mtata is saying. Chapter 12 of the Constitution.
Yes.
It was carried away from the old Mzungu Constitution and brought into this Constitution, because when we took Uhuru Kenyatta took office in 2013, a lot of things, not even everybody, even those people who constituted the Constitution, they didn't know what it was meaning in every page.
Yes.
So a lot of things were carried from the old and used in the new Constitution. But the good thing is that even you now in the morning, you have your own Constitution.
Squeezy, I work with it now with like a Bible.
Yes. I also saw there is a teens guide Constitution.
Yes.
That we are going to teach even the teens what is meant in the Constitution. I want to remember and say thank you to Rasta. I think you have seen Rasta. Rasta was the guy in the protest who was just carrying the Constitution, and he was just raising the Constitution high up and telling the police, just use this Constitution.
Yes, we don't need weapons.
We don't need weapons. But you see, even the same police, they know when they go to the DCI, the DCI is going to sanitize them. You saw the rush that the DCI went to look for the people who went into parliament, the people who went to loot the jobs. They were so fast to go and look for these people. But Didmas Baraza is free.
On the front of our papers today.
Yes, in the front of the paper, is free. So why is the government institutions sanitizing people who are like killing our future? The people who just want to see their bank accounts full.
Yes.
You see, the other day, the same person who shot someone at 2022 bought an helicopter. Even Senator, which senator was it?
Who was a helicopter?
Yes, Didmas Baraza has a new helicopter. You see,
Yes.
From where?
Fiscal irresponsibility
Where
of
is that
public
money coming
funds,
from?
isn't it?
Now I'm seeing even people, if it is from Sport Pesa, it's okay. But we are seeing people who were elected the other day. They are coming up with helicopters everywhere. There's someone who's told me, and that is true. Go to the Senate parking and go to the MP's parking. There's a difference. Senators go with even Pro Box to Senate, but MPs, you saw even they have Jaguars, they have Porsches.
Yes. I've seen one with a very serious Vogue.
Yeah, you see, where are these guys getting this money?
I just a first-time member of parliament under 2 years. Yeah. So yesterday I was having a conversation with another friend of mine who isn't on this show today, and they pointed out the fact that this is what now has led to the glorification of government positions and member of parliament to become a governor, to become a president. It's no longer about I want to go and do something for the people. It's niliona huyo aliingia mambo yake ikaenda sawa. So it means I need also to get into this position and ensure I get something for myself. That's why the young people are angry, because they're not getting these benefits. And the other thing pointed out is the handouts which have been given to the previous generations. The young people saizi ukiuliza, if you did a survey, ni umwe kula pesa ya nani, umwe kula pesa ya mbunge mgani, or hiyo pesa ambayo wanasema ina distribute time ya campaign. It's really hard to find a young person who's had anything or received a handout.
Mimi nakuaga campaign na mimi nakuaga protest. That money is eaten by those people who are strong.
Yeah.
Kwa sababu not everyone, like me, how small I am, you don't
get to the front line to
there,
take 100 bob.
A lot of people are there pushing you everywhere. Yeah, even in page 10 Daily Nation, Obado corruption case starts today.
Yeah.
You see, the DCI
they're saying it's not off the hook.
Yeah, it's still off the hook. But tell me, how old is this case?
Yes, from the previous administration, isn't it?
Yes.
When he was governor back.
So the DCI and the DPP, they are doing things that are not helping Kenyans. Because mwizi wa kuku akiiba mnamnyonga.
Right.
Huyu akiiba mamilioni mnamsanitize.
Brian, it seems the independence of most of our institutions have been compromised. If I can pick up from Deno mentioning the DCI, the ODPP cases being dropped, even into this new administration, we saw corruption cases zilipotea tu. That is still fiscal irresponsibility. Hiyo ni pesa ambayo tunahitaji. We saw the former governor of Nyamira, I believe, who got acquitted and gave back just a few millions of the hundreds of millions that he already misappropriated. What can we do to make sure our institutions are independent? We might occupy State House, but then, you know, DCI wanafanya mambo yao huko kando. So we might fix parliament, we might occupy parliament, or DCI anatukujia kesho because bado amekuwa influenced in some way. What can we do to strengthen this institution? Because it feels like the problem might actually not even be Ruto. Shida ni the institutions that are supposed to keep Ruto in check, which are also weak, including the parliament.
I think we could have started this show by observing a moment of silence for the death of our independent institutions. Ooh. It is actually seriously dead. And what the government is doing actually is they are just flogging a dead horse. Yeah. We have a leadership that have serious integrity issues. People who fervently shy away from the real problems. People who have some kind of fire in their stomach. Yeah. Whenever they hear about progressive change, they start to move from their seats. And these are people who are actually sabotaging, yeah, the development agenda of the government of the day. And we've seen the government of the day being reluctant on acting on these people. Because the moment you let someone to sabotage your plan, then it means that you will not be able to achieve some of your objectives. Yes. Recently, we've seen reports about a certain CS. I think he went abroad and he was involved in an altercation, I think, over some very controversial issues.
Yes.
And these are someone who is supposed to observe Chapter 6 of the Constitution. He is someone who is supposed to observe the public officer's conduct. And therefore, we have a government that is seriously sick. They are very allergic to the truth. The moment you tell them the truth, they become fidgety, yeah? And therefore, when you look at where we are currently, as we said when we started, the problem is not our laws. The problem is those mammals who have been put in position to implement these laws. These people, they are very they are not trusted. Yeah. Yes, the other day we saw the conflict of interest bill being mutilated by the senators. Yeah. Yes. These are the people that people have entrusted with power to go and legislate, put in place measures to ensure that corruption is fought by truth, fought by spirit, by word, and by action. And these are some of the people that we can equate to a certain story of a lady who hid a hyena that was being pursued by the whole village.
Yes.
After the whole village is gone, the hyena turned around and said, now I'm very hungry and I want to eat your kid. Yeah. These are some people who can turn around and eat you guys. And they are not, we can no longer trust them. Some of our institutions, as we've said, they are not independent. They are very dependent. They are being captured. They have been captured. And it's actually a very sad state of affairs because these are institutions that are supposed to act like the backup for the citizens. And what we need to do is we need a complete overhaul. Yeah. And that's what Gen Zs are actually calling for. We want resignation of some of these people because even those people in management of this particular parastatals and state commissions, they have serious integrity issues. And there's no way a person with integrity issues is going to, there's no way a hyena is going to be a judge for the chicken.
Yes.
Yeah? It is very difficult. We need to empower this particular institution so that they can perform their role adequately. We have oversight parliamentary committees. These committees, they are supposed to report regularly on how the public debt, public finance is actually being done by the government, together with the Office of Control of Budget. But we've seen complete I mean, the silence that we've observed with some of these offices, it's actually deafening, and it's worrying.
Yes.
And that's why citizens, we have said that now we are not going to relent on our call. Let Gen Zs do the work of the God, and we are there to support them because we need independence, and that's what our devolution actually, it oversaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
The money is that these offices are being cut. The office of the First Lady, the office of the spouse, to the Deputy President, to the Prime's Cabinet Secretary, these unconstitutional offices, which is also a whole other conversation, the unconstitutionality of the current government. Everything seems to be outside of the provisions which are there stipulated in the law. And as you said, we don't have a problem with what is in here. And I also saw a very similar statement from Okia Umtata saying the problem is not the law or the constitution. Everything is clear. The law is very clear, and they say that very often. The people who are supposed to be taking care of that law are the problem. Now we have people who've now been playing very funny games with Kenyans. Put pressure, we give you a lie, and then we tell you to metenga, and then 6 months later that has not been implemented. We add you a lie on top, because I remember it was on this show when we talked about the travel expenditure of the government. President William Ruto came later to say they've cut their travel expenditure. This year, the reports coming in say that figure has doubled, even with the restrictions which were published by the Public Service Commission, stipulating who should travel, how many people they should carry, how much money they should carry. But eventually, they still spent way much more than what they were spending earlier, even before that declaration. Now, President William Ruto says, atakata hizo ofisi ni sawa. How can we track that money? Is there a way that we can find out hii pesa iko wapi and where is it being taken and being channeled to in the right places?
I think before my colleague chips in,
Yeah.
just to begin, when you look at page 4 of the Standard,
Yes.
it actually talks about Kenya awaits cabinet changes as Ruto takes time to act on his word. When the government took over the realms of power, we saw the president very charismatic and enthusiastic in ensuring that we live within our means. We even saw him taking on some austerity measures. Yeah, some of them they went without a salary, I think, for a month. But after a few months, they actually forgot. And recently, we've seen the same thing that the president has actually said, that he's going to ensure that their austerity measures are being observed within the government. But now, having come from that particular history, we are used to the president's words. Yeah, I'm going to do it very soon. I'm going to do it in 6 months. Yeah, tumepanga. And we are not going to go by his words, but we are going to only be bound by his actions. When we look at page 4, it actually highlights some of the status of Ruto's Friday last week promises.
Yes.
And some of these promises, you realize that, for example, when he said that he's not going to there's no allocation of funds to the office of the amorphous offices of the spouses, the First Lady. Yeah, we have not received any update so far from the Prime Cabinet Secretary as well. We've received no update. We've not received any update on Harambes for government officers. And therefore, it is because of this communication breakdown from the government that now citizens are calling for serious restructuring in the government. I've checked the Daily Nation, and there's a page where we have seen they've written deserted Gachagua.
Gachagua isolated
Gachagua. And this tells you that there's a very serious problem within even the government itself, because if you cannot be able to manage your internal affairs, then how are you going to manage the affairs of the country?
True.
We've seen Gachagua coming out and playing to his own public gallery. And when when an alligator tells you that the crocodile is sick, you don't have to doubt, because it is true that the crocodile is sick. The government is not
together.
well. Yes. So we need to receive an update from the government where that particular budget that has been removed from these amorphous offices, where is it being channeled? Because I've seen also on Standard whereby there is issue around on page 5. Education reforms run into headwinds to underfunding. Schools are actually having a problem with underfunding.
Yes.
When the president took into power, and the moment he actually placed down the Bible, he promised that he's going to work for Kenyans, and he put in place a task force. It is the reforms. It's called the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform.
Yeah.
But you realize that some of these recommendations that has been highlighted in that task force, it has been sabotaged when it comes to implementation. Why? Because one of the reasons is resources. There's no resources. Resources have been channeled elsewhere. Resources have been channeled to renovation of state houses, state lodges. Some of these buildings, they are renovated every 5 years, and it's only one person who lives there. When you look at a budget like now, we saw the other day a report that the president and the deputy president are receiving house allowance. They're receiving house allowance, and yet
they still have a free house.
Still, we have provided them with a free house, and therefore some of these resources, they need to be channeled into basic services like education, like healthcare. We've seen the medical interns spending the cold night at the MOH, at the Afia House. And these are people who are agitating for their rights. These are students, these are our kids, our brothers and sisters who have spent years in schools grinding, education, acquiring this knowledge. And just to be told at the end of the day that we are going to send you abroad. Yeah, I saw the other day. I think it's the cabinet secretary for a cabinet secretary saying that youths are supposed to register on the National Employment Authority website. When you go to that website, there are thousands of jobs, but these jobs, they are casual jobs. Yeah. So how
you cannot tell a medic to go to a
you cannot
job.
Tell a person who have studied 5 years at the university just to obtain a degree with hard-earned money that the parent has worked so hard to milk the cow and sell coffee to pay for the school fees for them to go and be a housewife abroad in conditions that are very, very risky. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense with the current state of affairs.
Okay. No, I only have 1 minute. I'm sorry, it's 9:57 in the morning, so you have to be done with your submission by 9:58 and 30 seconds. Okay. Please go and wrap it up on anything else I might have left.
Okay. What I just want to say is that the drunk guy did better than the corrupt parishioner. That is the only thing I can say, because all these scenes are coming after he told us that he gave a lot of expectation to us. The only thing that kills someone, and the only thing that can make you crucify someone, is the expectation you put them in their head. So he gave us a lot of expectation, but nothing is coming through. So we want to tell him that we have seen our fellow Gen Zs and Kenyans and Kenyan youths are sleeping outside the MOH building because of lacking jobs.
Yes.
Just the other day, the government came up with the community health promoters. My question is, we have Red Cross, we have St. John's Ambulance, we have Scouts. Why can those people go to those things, and then the CHP becomes interns, people who are medics?
Yes.
You see, me, I cannot be treated by a CHP because it's just somebody who has been collected in the village, and then is put there, given Panadols at the moment
coverage.
You see, and people who have gone to school for 6 months, for 6 years, they have no jobs.
Yes.
Just to finish up, I want to say that we are not tiring. We are not tiring. We are very energetic. We are going to occupy everywhere. We are going to come and greet you. We have your numbers. We have the Anonymous. Thank you, Anonymous, for helping us through. Yeah, we have the Anonymous. We are going to do what God's work is.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Deno and Brian Sengeli, for coming through to the show and for that discussion on how we can hold the government accountable. Citizens have the right to do so, and what we were discussing here mostly was on what is provided on Chapter 12 of the Constitution. Just to remind you, Chapter 12 of the Kenyan Constitution, the Public Finance Act, enshrines principles to public access to budget information, public participation in budgeting, and oversight by Parliament and the Auditor General. Just to close the show up, thank you very much for keeping it here on KUTV Rise today. This has been Biashara Tuesday, a very exciting morning here, discussing transition to the workplace and also the state of the nation when it comes to matters of finance. To leave you with Article 3 of Chapter 1 of the Constitution. Chapter 1 says, sovereignty of the people and supremacy of this Constitution. Article 3, every person has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend this Constitution. Any attempt to establish a government otherwise than in compliance with this Constitution is unlawful. Thank you very much. My name is Richard Okenye. Interact with me on social platforms at Richard_Okenye. May your week be fruitful. May your profits be high, but your humor higher, so that you can laugh all the way to the bank. I'll see you around.